history and myth often blur together. Somewhere between the lines of Homer's verses, in the gaps of Greek legend, and in the faint echoes of forgotten African traditions, there exists a story of a king whose name has almost vanished, King Aken of Saphos. Unlike Agamemnon or Hector, his name is not carved in marble or immortalized in poetry. Unlike Achilles, his deeds are not taught in every classroom. And yet, his story, half remembered, half erased, suggests that he once stood against the might of Greece's greatest hero. If Achilles was the unstoppable warrior of the Greeks, King Aken was the challenger from the edges of their known world, an African ruler who marched from Saphos to Troy with pride, courage, and defiance. Though time has swallowed his memory, his tale offers us a glimpse of a truth often ignored. The Trojan War was not merely a Greek saga. It was a clash that drew warriors from across the ancient world, including the great kingdoms of Africa. This is the legend of King Aken of Saphos, the African ruler who fought Achilles. The setting: beyond Homer's Greece. When most people think of the Trojan War, they imagine a narrow story: Greeks against Trojans, a siege on the walls of Troy, and a tragic horse-shaped trick that sealed the city's fate. But the truth is larger. The war, whether historical or mythologized, was described as drawing allies from every corner of the Mediterranean and beyond. Princes from Lydia, commanders from Thrace, charioteers from Phrygia, and even warriors from lands the Greeks barely understood. One of those faraway lands was Saphos, a name that survives only faintly in the shadows of myth. Some say it was a great city on the North African coast, rivaling the wealth of Carthage long before Carthage itself was born. Others whisper it was an inland kingdom along the Nile's tributaries, where black soil yielded grain and armies marched in glittering bronze. Whatever its geography, the Greeks described it as distant, rich, and powerful, and its king, Aken, was said to be a man of immense pride. Aken's rise before the war, King Aken was already renowned in his homeland. Legends describe him as both warrior and statesman. He was said to have been born during a storm, lightning flashing across the skies, as if the heavens themselves marked his arrival. Trained in spear and sword from childhood, he rose not just as a fighter, but as a leader with charisma that bound his people. Under his rule, Saphos prospered. Its harbors bustled with trade, its warriors were drilled to march in perfect formation, and its banners, adorned with the image of a lion, flew proudly across neighboring lands. Aken was more than a king. He was a symbol of African strength and independence, one who demanded recognition from powers far beyond his borders. When word reached Saphos that Troy was under siege, envoys traveled across deserts and seas to seek allies. For the Trojans, facing the might of Agamemnon's coalition, every ally mattered. For Aken, the request was an opportunity, a chance to prove his kingdom's valor on the world's grandest stage. March to Troy. The journey of King Aken's forces is itself the stuff of legend. Ancient songs claim he brought a fleet of sleek, black-hulled ships that stunned the Greeks when they first appeared on the horizon. Each ship bore warriors clad in bronze helmets and wielding spears, tipped with obsidian and iron. Their shields were painted with symbols of the lion, their queen's totem, and their drums thundered like storms over the sea. Aken himself led them, a towering figure, said to be nearly equal to Achilles in size and strength. His armor was unlike the Greek sea, made of layered hide reinforced with bronze, adorned with patterns that told the history of his people. Where Greek warriors wore crested helmets, Aken's crown was a circlet of gold and ivory, signifying both his royalty and his ferocity. When they landed near Troy, the Trojans welcomed him as a savior. Their king, Priam, greeted Aken with gifts of wine and gold, thanking him for coming so far to fight on their behalf. The African ruler, proud but respectful, pledged his strength. Saphos does not kneel before Greece. I will meet their greatest warrior, and I will not falter. The queen who remembered him. There is one last thread to Aken's story, a tale told in whispers. After his death, the Queen of Saphos, his wife, whose name has been lost, took command of the kingdom. She ruled in his absence, maintaining the stability of their land, ensuring his legacy did not vanish at once. She commissioned songs and carvings of her fallen king, declaring that as long as lions roamed the savannas, the name of Aken would not perish. Perhaps those carvings still lie buried under sands or ruins, waiting to be rediscovered. Perhaps the songs are still sung in distant villages, carrying the memory of the king who dared to fight Achilles. The lesson of King Aken. Beyond the clash of swords and the dust of ancient battlefields, the story of King Aken of Saphos leaves us with a deeper lesson. His life shows that even when history is written by victors, memory can never be completely erased. Aken may not stand in marble halls or dominate textbooks, but his courage survives in whispers, in the faint traces of oral tradition, and in the idea that greatness is universal. His duel with Achilles was not simply about victory or defeat. It was about recognition. Recognition that African kings stood as equals on the stage of ancient legend, and that no empire, no poet, and no conqueror can silence the truth forever. The silence of the poets, one reason King Aken is so little known today, lies in the silence of the poets. Homer and other Greek storytellers celebrated their heroes, but rarely gave equal glory to their enemies. Aken's defeat was remembered only as a stepping stone in Achilles' path, not as the tale of a proud king who stood his ground. Yet silence is not the same as absence. The very fact that his name appears in the margins of myth shows that his presence was felt, feared, and respected. To restore his story is to break that silence and give voice to the forgotten. A symbol for the future, for modern audiences, King Aken is more than just a half-lost figure of myth. He is a symbol of resilience for Africa, and for all those whose histories have been overshadowed. His courage against Achilles becomes a metaphor that no matter how powerful the opponent, dignity and bravery cannot be erased. In this way, Aken still fights, not on the plains of Troy, but in our imagination, challenging us to remember that greatness belongs to every land and every people. Got it? Here's one more strong point. You can add for depth and closure, the echo of the lion. Legends say that when King Aken fell on the plains of Troy, his warriors raised a cry so fierce it silenced even the Greeks for a moment. That cry was called the echo of the lion, a vow that their king's spirit would never vanish. Generations later, the phrase survived as a proverb in Saphos. The lion may fall, but his echo rules the valley. It meant that true power outlives the body, and courage resounds through centuries. Even if his story was nearly lost, the echo of Aken's defiance still roars quietly through time, waiting to be heard again. The lion and the wolf in the end. King Aken of Saphos stands as both a man and a symbol. A man who may have lived, marched to Troy, and fought with unmatched valor, and a symbol of Africa's forgotten place in ancient history. A reminder that the world of Homer's poems was far wider and more diverse than we are taught. He lost his life on that battlefield, but he did not lose his dignity. Against the greatest warrior of Greece, he fought with pride. Against the erasure of time, his memory still flickers in stories such as this. Achilles may be remembered as the wolf of Greece, but Aken remains the lion of Africa, a king who dared to fight on the grandest stage of myth, and whose story, once uncovered, refuses to be forgotten again.